She froze. Mid-sip, mid-sentence, mid-smile, like someone had yanked the plug on her reality. One moment, Yara was joking with a cameraman. The next, she was staring at Jovi's unlocked phone like it had slapped her across the face. Whatever she'd just read, it shattered the morning and nearly ended the season before TLC could shout, "Cut!" They were in New Orleans, filming what should have been a light marriage update. No tension, no drama. Just coffee, parenting check-ins, and how's married life fluff for the camera? Instead, the footage was so raw, so real, insiders claimed TLC locked it in a private server. 3 executives. Encrypted access only. You're watching TLC Drama Files. I'm Aliva, and what you're about to hear was never supposed to reach us. Subscribe now and hit the comments, because after this, you're going to have opinions. So what exactly was on that screen? According to leaked internal crew notes and production logs obtained by fan detectives, Yara grabbed Jovi's phone to look up restaurant directions for a scene planned later that day. Pretty normal, yeah? Until she opened the browser and saw a message thread labeled with a single letter L. That's it. Just L. We now know that thread included late-night texts, throwback selfies, and one particular voice note that blew everything open. A note that, according to a source on the audio team, played out in real time as the cameras kept rolling. The message was allegedly from someone Jovi knew before Yara ever arrived in America. And the tone wasn't casual. According to someone who heard the raw clip, the voice on that note laughed, then paused, almost nostalgic. "You always knew how to make me laugh when it was just us. I still dream about those nights. No accusation, no anger. Just emotional weight and intimacy. The kind that makes your stomach drop." Yara stared. She didn't blink, didn't speak. She swiped, scrolled, replayed the audio. Her hand, crew members say, started shaking. Not theatrical, not reality TV shaking. Like this was the moment something she'd quietly feared finally confirmed itself. Her husband, the father of her child, not only still had contact with another woman, but sounded like he might miss her. Now here's where things start going off script. We've seen fights on 90 Day before. Screaming in kitchens. Slammed doors. Ugly crying. What made this different, according to anonymous field producers, was that there was no reaction from Yara at first. Not to Jovi, not to the phone. She didn't create drama, she whispered. 5 words. "I wasn't supposed to see this." And insiders say that's when production hit full-on panic mode, not because of what Jovi had done, but because their golden couple's center was starting to collapse. This wasn't reality TV production territory anymore. This was damage control. Because just a few feet away, Jovi was sitting on the couch, still smiling, still laughing with the cameraman. He had no idea. He hadn't even noticed the phone was missing yet, and when he did, everything changed. Does that mean it was an honest mistake? A messy accident? Or had Jovi gotten too comfortable hiding things in plain sight? Behind the scenes, whispers started flying. The timeline didn't add up. This wasn't a one-time message. It was a thread. Ongoing activity. Dated during a business trip just 2 weeks before this shoot. While Yara was filming solo content and taking care of the baby, he was allegedly swapping voice notes with someone named L. But the part that made everyone on the crew pause? The intimacy wasn't just in the old photos or lingering messages. It was in how Yara reacted. Like this wasn't entirely new, like part of her had suspected. But seeing it, hearing that voice say those things, pulled her back into reality. Not the one TV shows get edited into. The real one. The one where the person you sacrificed everything for might be living a double life. That scene never aired. Neither did the next one. It was supposed to be easy. That's what the call sheet said. No drama, no heavy dialogue. Just a relaxed slice of life shoot to wrap up the season before the next round of confessionals kicked in. The production team was flown out to New Orleans with minimal crew, a comfort-driven lighting setup, and notes that literally read, "Focus on family bonding." Translation: this wasn't designed to push storylines. It was bridge content. Filler. Show the happy couple making brunch, playing with their toddler, talking casually about the future. Scoop up a few sweet B-roll shots and get out before lunch. But under those feel-good directions, something darker was simmering. This was roughly 6 weeks after Jovi had returned from a business trip, one that insiders say wasn't originally meant to be discussed on camera. And to the crew there, it seemed like things between him and Yara were fine. Light jokes, comfortable smiles, a little bickering over breakfast, like, marriage. It all changed the second Yara put her hand on that phone. The camera was rolling the entire time. She reached across the island to check directions. Nothing suspicious. But then her expression changed. It didn't crumple in shock. It flatlined. like her body froze before her mind gave her permission to. By the time a field producer realized something was off, she was already scrolling through the thread. At first, they assumed it was personal, maybe an off-camera fight, maybe something with home or family in Ukraine. But then her lips began to move, barely. She was murmuring something to herself. The boom mic caught it, almost missed under the AC. Why is she still texting you? That's when the assistant camera noticed Jovi react. His head turned, his brows furrowed. Then his eyes locked on his phone in her hand, the one she wasn't supposed to have. He stood up, but it was already too late. Yara had heard the voice notes. She had read the text stamped 2:13 a.m. She had seen the selfie, the one that didn't need an explanation. What's wild is, she didn't confront him right away. No yelling, no accusations. Instead, she looked straight into the lens, into us. No expression. No tears yet, just one sentence. I can't pretend anymore. Not a turn to camera like they do during interviews. Not a scheduled confessional. This was mid-scene, impromptu, unedited. Crew members went totally silent, stunned. One field tech forgot to hit pause. They just let the tape run. That line, "I can't pretend anymore," never made it to air. And yet, every person in the room felt the season shift in that moment. According to an assistant editor, the raw footage was marked "Do Not Archive" and immediately diverted away from the standard workflow. Instead of syncing for editing like usual, the files were sent straight to a private server with multi-layer encryption. Access was restricted to only 3 supervising producers, and even they had to log timestamps for every playback. Why such extreme reaction over what could have been passed off as a relationship hiccup? Because this wasn't a scripted fight, it wasn't a he said, she said segment. It wasn't emotional for TV, it was emotional, period. And when you pair that truth with a network contract, schedules, and storyline demands, it becomes a liability. TLC didn't just lose control of the edit. They lost control of her. What they couldn't allow the audience to see was a woman waking up in front of the camera, not for a scene, but for herself. The moment Yara stopped performing wasn't dramatic. It was devastating. And networks don't air devastation if they can't direct it. That raw footage, the uncut, unscripted record of a woman realizing something has quietly been wrong for a long time, was too real. The problem wasn't her hurt. It's that nobody had written her being honest into the script. Producers scrambled. Conversations moved from walkie-talkies to private phone calls. Several crew members were removed from the next day's shoot, not for misconduct, but because they'd seen too much. The sound team was told in no uncertain terms, stop rolling unless directly instructed. The couple was separated for the rest of the day under the guise of resetting scene blocking. But here's the kicker. Yara didn't fight that hard. She didn't scream or demand answers from Jovi right then. Maybe because she already had them. Maybe because she'd known for longer than she let on. She just asked one thing of the producers, in a voice so soft it needed subtitles. "Can I go sit with my daughter?" And what happened next made TLC realize they weren't filming a show anymore. They were filming Fallout. Within hours of the shoot ending, chaos kicked off, not on set, but in post. Editors in 2 different cities said their morning upload queues froze. The usual overnight camera dumps? Blocked. Instead, a private Slack channel lit up with a single-line directive. Footage flagged. Lockdown protocol in effect. Stand by. At first, no one outside of Senior Post had a clue why. But one assistant editor who usually handled Yara's footage noticed her entire folder disappearing off shared servers. Not moved. Not renamed. Gone. 5 separate takes, including backups from 2 camera angles and the boom mic feed, were rerouted through something called Tier 1 Restricted Internal Review Only, which doesn't usually happen unless someone's committed a crime, or cried the kind of truth that makes people upstairs sweat. According to 2 insiders, 3 producers sat in a closed-door session that same night, watching that raw scene with their headphones off and their office doors locked. One allegedly said out loud, "We never should have kept filming," but the damage was already in motion, because a sound tech, unaware of the clampdown, had kept the boom mic rolling during what was supposed to be a break. He hadn't powered down after the bedroom reset. That mistake, one simple lapse in standard protocol, captured something no one else was supposed to hear. But the damage was already in motion, because a sound tech, unaware of the clampdown, had kept the boom mic rolling during what was supposed to be a break. He hadn't powered down after the bedroom reset. That mistake, one simple lapse in standard protocol, captured something no one else was supposed to hear, and it wasn't shouting. It wasn't even a fight. It was Yara alone in the backseat of a production van, whispering in a mix of Ukrainian and English. Muffled gasps, quick breaths, mostly silent, until her voice broke. They think I'm strong. I'm not. Another pause, then barely audible. I wanted to trust him. And I did. And now I don't trust myself. When the audio was transcribed and labeled internally, it was marked with a red tag. Emotional, do not distribute. That didn't stop the lawyers from showing up. Within 48 hours, Yara was hit with a contract review. Not a lawsuit, not a formal warning, but a signed reminder from legal about non-disparagement clauses, unauthorized exits from production, and exclusive content ownership. Translation: if she spoke publicly or walked away mid-season, she'd owe money. Lots of it. Executives, meanwhile, were split. Half wanted to bury the footage. The other half? Rewrite it, not delete the conflict. Reshape it. Use less emotion, paint Jovi's thread as a misunderstood friendship, and prep a new edit with voiceovers to explain Yara's mood as exhaustion from travel. Problem was, some cuts couldn't hide what the camera had already captured. Not the shaking hands. Not the way her face drained completely of warmth. Not the shot of her putting down the phone, looking over to her daughter's sippy cup, and closing her eyes like she didn't want them to open. Again, even the editors, people used to filtering emotional breakdowns into 44-minute arcs, couldn't polish this, of them told production privately. It's not that it was messy, it's that it didn't feel like a TV moment. It felt like a person breaking. What followed was one of the most frantic edit room weeks in franchise history. Day after day. Cuts, recuts, voiceovers, text overlays. Anything to reshape the story without legally admitting what really went down. The group chat between producers exploded with what they called intervention-level continuity framing, which is code for smoothing out a narrative that doesn't match what's actually real. But no matter how much they tried to restructure it, one problem kept showing up in the timeline. Yara wasn't crying for sympathy. She was numb. She didn't storm off with sound bites. She turned herself off. Zero energy. Eye contact broken. Voice flat. Lines like, "Yes, I'm fine." With no conviction at all. And the scariest part, not for fans, not even for Yara, for TLC, because the woman they'd invested years building up as strong, elegant, fiery, loyal, funny, bossy, bubbly, all the things the audience loved, had gone completely blank. Not emotionally unavailable, not angry, quiet. And when a reality star like that goes quiet, your edit has nothing left to shape. In those lost hours after filming, Yara didn't go back to the Airbnb. She didn't request a rewrite. She asked to wait in the car, away from her daughter, away from camera crew, lights, glam, snacks, everything the show builds around. She sat in a locked van in 95-degree New Orleans heat, no fan running, make still hot, crying softly into her sweater sleeve, hiding her face behind cheap blackout sunglasses. It wasn't about being embarrassed. She looked like someone who didn't belong to her own life anymore. It started on Reddit. Where else? A random user with no profile history dropped 5 blurry screenshots. At first glance, it looked like regular fan fiction, maybe another thirsty fan trying to stir the pot. But within hours, the fandom exploded. Because what they posted wasn't fantasy, it was formatted exactly like iMessage. Exact text bubbles, real-time indicators, clean metadata. And one thing that sealed it? The timestamps. Each message was dated during Jovi's recent work trip, the same trip that fast-tracked the entire New Orleans shoot. While Yara was in the background shooting side scenes with their daughter, juggling mom duty and vendor promos, Jovi was allegedly sending voice notes to someone labeled L. He hadn't even saved her full name. Just L, like this wasn't new. Like, it didn't need context. One message read, "You never failed to make me laugh. Yara probably doesn't get that side of you." That line alone ignited a firestorm. Fans flooded forums pointing out that it sounded too real, too specific. Not something you send to a coworker. Not something you keep under a single-letter contact name. TLC moved fast. DMCA takedowns dropped like drone strikes. Entire Twitter threads vanished. Screenshots were pulled from fan-run subreddits in record time. But the damage was already done. Because by then, digital forensics folks had already moved in. Thanks to the EXIF data embedded in some of the images, at least 2 tech-savvy fans were able to verify that parts of the visual metadata matched the formatting used internally on TLC production devices. This meant that even if Yara didn't leak the messages, someone with access to crew equipment did. Or at the very least, someone close to the source. That sent fans spiraling deeper. And not just about Jovi. Questions started flying toward production. Why was this covered up? Why had that super casual New Orleans scene, once teased on cast Instagram stories, never aired? Why did Yara suddenly drop off social media for almost 2 weeks the same day those screenshots went up? Here's the wildest part. Most of the fandom thought they were witnessing a classic cheating arc. But this wasn't just about infidelity. Allegedly, none of the messages contained anything explicitly sexual. No nudes. No dirty talk. It was emotional, familiar. Like Jovi had a secret second friendship, one that carried depth he wasn't showing to his wife, depending on who you ask. That's even worse. And here's where things tipped, because despite TLC's efforts to scrub the content, fans remembered. They clipped backup versions. Some ran the images through AI tools to enhance resolution. Others compared timestamps against known production schedules from leaked call sheets. Everything lined up. Yara was home alone, on camera, at the exact times those messages were sent, and she wasn't angry in those solo scenes. She looked tired, stretched thin, trying hard to hit producer marks, smile for fake birthday setups, hit her lines while juggling a teething toddler. But now that fans had the full context, they saw it differently. That wasn't boredom in her face. That was numbness. One moment especially started surfacing in reaction threads. A scene where Yara glanced at her phone after getting off a producer-scheduled Zoom call. She doesn't say anything, but she sighs quietly and rubs her forehead, like something had fully drained her. Nobody noticed it at the time. Now, it's a meme. When you find out you're starring in a drama you didn't sign up to write. What do you do when the narrative breaks free from the editors? When screenshots carry more weight than storyline cuts? TLC producers tried to regroup. Internally, some argued to feature the DMs as part of a redemption arc. The idea? Show Jovi owning the mistake. Reframe it as a past connection that got emotional by accident, then present him as a man who chose to come clean. But here's the problem. Yara never got that memo. She didn't film any of it. Everything that came after the screenshots was based around her silence, and silence makes the perfect cliffhanger until the truth gets louder. Somewhere deep in an edit bay 2 floors below TLC's main production suite, a silent war played out over a woman's voice trembling on camera. Not screaming, not breaking something, just shaking, whispering in fact, during a raw, almost unusable take that one editor described as painfully human. She said, "I gave up everything for him. He gave me nothing." And in that moment, half the team froze. The other half already had their scissors out. This wasn't a fight about narrative pacing or runtime limits. It was a full-blown standoff inside the production. According to multiple assistants and a leak from the post department, 2 distinct camps formed during the first round of rough cuts: Team Truth versus Team Control. Let's start with Team Truth. Some of these were producers who had been with the franchise for seasons, people who'd seen the worst. They believed in showing the reality as is, that this was the moment of the season. The moment when viewers could see, without edits, how far someone like Yara had bent herself to make it work. No villain edit, no redemption arc, just real consequences. One whispered line over a nearly silent boom mic. "I can't keep being the good one." Raw, clear, devastating. Then came Team Control. More senior, more polished, and fully aligned with what advertisers love most: stability, relatability, and controlled emotional peaks. No open-ended ambiguity. No room for viewers to turn on the show instead of the character. Their argument? Nobody tunes in for unproduced grief. The season needed structure, a through line, and they already had one picked. Jovi, the confused but caring husband, trying to connect. Yara, distant, overwhelmed, emotionally unavailable. Turn the text scandal into a miscommunication. Downplay the timestamps. Don't let the audience connect screenshots to calendar dates. And ex-producer who left during this period later claimed that an early cut included none of Yara's boom mic. Interview clips after the phone incident. Not because they weren't usable. Technically, they were fine. But because, in their words, the emotional tone made Jovi look heartless, and that put pressure on our top-floor team. See, this wasn't just about protecting one cast member. It was about protecting the formula. People fall in love with these couples. They root for them. If it starts feeling too real, too irreversible, the illusion breaks. especially when what's breaking isn't the relationship, but the woman carrying it. And let's be honest, how do you edit real disappointment? How do you soften footage of someone emotionally shutting down while a camera crew keeps pointing a mic in her face? One solution the team tried was re-recording interviews with Jovi, this time coaching him to focus on regret. He allegedly filmed lines like, "I was checked out, yeah. I should have opened up more." Passive language? No admitting the texts existed. Just vague emotional accountability. One editor reportedly flagged that Jovi avoided using names, dates, or direct actions in any response sentence. Everything was kept in safe, unspecific language. Yeah, I made mistakes. Marriage is hard. I'm working on myself. And yet, Yara's raw moments during that same timeline were clipped for being too direct. In one scene, she allegedly whispers to the cam op who hadn't even turned off audio yet, "The cameras know me more than he does." It didn't make the final cut. Because, again, there's a business model to protect here. Nobody's saying Jovi is evil. That's not the point. Even insiders acknowledge he participated in multiple reshoots. He showed up, he smiled, he gave social safe quotes like Yara's, "Strong, and I support her always." But here's the question. If your spouse is fighting to hold together a family on camera while you're texting, someone saved in your phone is L. Who's the real emotional lead of the story? And who's getting left on the cutting room floor? Reality TV has this brutal talent of turning slow breakdowns into structured acts. You saw it last season when a crying wife was edited next to a piano track and an aerial shot of the city skyline, so it looked reflective instead of helpless. That's not a coincidence. That's control. Same thing here. Slow spiraling turned into Yara's dramatic again. Panic coded as hormonal. Her brutal honesty, "I have nothing left to say," shuffled into background audio during a mime scene scored for sympathy on Jovi's behalf. The scary part? Most regular viewers didn't even realize it, because well-edited silence sounds like closure, even if what really happened was abandonment, all dressed up as plot, tension. But the tapes told another story. And even if they didn't make it to air, pieces of them still live in places TLC can't reach. She disappeared. No calls, no glam team. None of the usual talent wrangler updates producers rely on to track cast movements. One moment, Yara was sitting in a cooled van outside the New Orleans shoot refusing to speak. And the next, gone for nearly 4 days. Even TLC didn't know where she'd landed. Behind the scenes, emails were flying. Was she with a friend? Did she fly back to Ukraine? There was concern, sure, but not enough to cancel the storyline. Not enough to kill the segment. They posted a crew in her hotel lobby and waited. What they didn't expect was for her to check into a different hotel, under a completely fake last name, in Los Angeles alone. And she didn't reach out to a show producer, or network rep, or a PR handler. She called one person, a junior field producer who'd worked her first season, someone she'd bonded with before all the chaos, before the edits, before reality TV warped everything into side eyes and snappy comebacks. That producer, according to multiple insiders, begged TLC to let her speak freely. No notes, no glam, no narrative, no spin. At first, the network refused. Off-contract interviews are legally messy. But eventually, maybe out of fear of losing her completely, they agreed. One interview with conditions, no second camera, no crew, no guarantee of release. Yara showed up alone. Hair tied back, no makeup, a white sweatshirt. Her daughter was with someone else. Another cast member, reportedly, because she didn't want her anywhere near the shoot. She sat at the edge of an unmade hotel bed, holding a cup of cold tea. Her eyes were swollen. Her voice, barely above a whisper, the producer's voice came from behind the lens. No cue cards, no leading prompts, just one question. Do you want to begin at the beginning? What followed, sources say, was one of the most raw, painful, and emotionally honest monologues in franchise history. She didn't bash Jovi. She didn't beg for sympathy. What she said instead was more haunting. "I feel like I live for the camera now," she murmured. "Every time we fight, they keep rolling. They wait for me to fall apart. They even ask if I can take off my mic slower when I cry." She chuckled, not in a fun way. "In the beginning, they said I was funny. Now they say I'm good TV when I break." She paused. "They want me to cry on cue. And I'm tired of delivering. Nobody in the editing suite expected what she'd do next." She didn't rant. She didn't script a PR-safe goodbye. She owned her story. Quietly. Nervously. But absolutely. She admitted that she had been warned not to read too much into what Jovi was texting. That production told her not to spiral, that if she kept her cool, they could frame it as romantic confusion. Not betrayal, but in her words, they wanted to sell the heartbreak but not take responsibility for causing it. When asked if she still loved Jovi, she didn't answer right away. She looked straight into the lens and said, "This isn't about love anymore. It's about survival." Her voice cracked at the edge of that sentence. And then she sat back and went still for almost 30 whole seconds, the kind of silence you don't need to edit. One production assistant reportedly burst into tears watching the footage later. Even hardened editors said it felt dangerous to broadcast, not because of legal concerns, but because nothing they cut afterward held the same weight. This wasn't a storyline. It was exhaustion. Fully televised, we all signed up to show our stories, Yara said toward the end, but the show never promised to protect us. She reached down, pulled out a tissue from under her sleeve, wiped her own sweat, and smiled. Not the big bubbly Yara grin fans know. Something sadder, realer. "I'm giving them nothing else," she added. "They have their scenes. They don't get my breakdown." And then she said the line that stuck with the crew to this day. If this interview ever airs, it's not a redemption arc. It's proof. Proof that the happy couple brand was maybe always just editing. That whatever love she clung to at the beginning cracked somewhere between the trailers. The travel, the missed calls from home, and the camera always waiting for her to cry. Josh, a producer who saw the full unedited interview, allegedly walked out of the room halfway through and told the others, "I don't want a hand in making this look like fault. Not hers. Not anyone's. It's too late." But the show had deadlines, and every second of silence cost time. What crew called the most truthful footage of the season? Never even made it to preview cuts. It vanished. Just like Yara did, Jovi finally posted. But instead of owning anything, he hit copy-paste on what looked like a PR-safe Band-Aid. People love drama. We're fine. Working things out in private. Standard non-denial denial. No mention of voice notes. No mention of Elle. Not even a vague nod to the fact that fans had already seen the screenshots. But behind that smooth caption, things weren't fine at all. Not in the edit bays. Not in the production office. Not at TLC. Internal messages that leaked weeks later revealed very different energy. And one line stood out across every page. Do not reference New Orleans footage moving forward. Not in storyboards. Not in sizzle reels. Not in cast pickups. It was now a black hole in what had been the show's most anticipated "Where are they now?" segment. And yet, parts of it had already leaked. Because while producers locked the final interview in encrypted servers, a handful of burned-out crew members had quietly started sending clips to fan accounts they trusted. Nothing crystal clear. Just bits, fragments, clipped audio, pixelated screenshots. But together, they painted a version of events that TLC had spent weeks trying to bury. One selfie showed Jovi standing outside a bar he'd sworn off during filming. Timestamp matched the night Yara was alone filming in a side suite. Another clip captured makeup artists wiping away Yara's tears. Between takes, just seconds before she was filmed, smiling with a gift basket, but the real blow came from a boom mic recording, where Yara didn't even think she was being taped. She was seated in a corner of their Airbnb, arms around her knees, rocking gently. Someone behind the lens asked if she wanted a break. She said, flat, eyes forward, "This is not a marriage. It's a storyline. And I'm tired." 5 seconds of silence followed. Then a muffled voice off camera warned, "We've got to bring this in tighter. Let's move to the couch setup." They went on filming. Reality didn't matter. Visual continuity did. Even Jovi's solo scenes were starting to come apart. In one clip used during promotional builds, he's filmed talking about how much he's learned as a dad and husband. But the raw cut caught the part right after, where he glances at the crew and asks, "You sure we don't have to address those texts?" They told him no. By this point, even TLC loyalists within production were starting to fracture. Some believed keeping the lid on the New Orleans arc was the only way to salvage a season that had spiraled too far outside reality. Others whispered that the damage was already done, that burying the truth made them complicit. And in the middle of that, Yara had gone dark. No posts, no stories, no captions. Not even birthday wishes publicly shared for her own daughter, something she'd always prioritized online before. This silence wasn't just distance, it was defiance. Industry insiders started calling it the Yara freeze, a conscious refusal to generate content, knowing the machine would repurpose anything she gave them. TLC tried to pivot. They scheduled a last-minute pickup scene with Jovi and his mother on standby. They wanted supportive quotes, family values, maybe a heartwarming "he's learning" montage. But those never hit the edit either. Why? Someone leaked the raw audio from that shoot too. Jovi's mom, after the second take, allegedly muttered something off cam. He needs to clean himself up before she does what she's been thinking about. Sound team caught it. Everyone heard it. That's when production dropped the entire scene, not because it didn't fit, but because it fit too well, because now the cracks weren't just between Jovi and Yara, they were inside the show's own structure. One final leak confirmed what editors feared most. An off-hour, confidential session between top producers where someone asked, "What happens if Yara's interview slips?" And the response? "We act surprised, and we scrub the rest." But the problem was, by then, nobody had their hands clean. And worse, they no longer controlled the leaks. It was their last shot. Literally. A reconciliation scene. Hastily written, heavily prepped, blocked in advance, lit with softness, and stacked with prompts designed to pull one last TV-perfect moment from the edge of a shattered timeline. But what no one working that day expected, what TLC couldn't prep for, was that Yara wouldn't deliver a scene. She would deliver an exit. The setting was calm on the surface. Hotel suite in LA, neutral tones. Plush throw pillows reset every 10 minutes. A tray of sliced fruit on standby, untouched. Jovi had been flown in for this. So had a producer from her original season, TLC was betting on charm, on tension that could be bent into healing, on enough eye contact to convince fans that the internet overreacted. Yara was told she could say how she felt, but she could feel what the segment needed. There was a difference. Behind every gentle prompt, "Yara, could you walk us through what you felt in that moment? Take your time," was the same old pressure. Land the emotion, but don't unravel. She didn't yell. She didn't sob. She answered the first two questions the way only someone who's dissociated halfway across the room can. "I'm okay," she said. "I understand things are complicated." Then she glanced once at Jovi. Not with love, not with hate. With absence, a camera op would later say, "It was the look of someone who already left but thought showing up was the polite thing to do." Then came the producer's buzzer beater. The big redemption hook, Yara. If you could tell Jovi anything right now, what would it be? She breathed once, looked down at her lap, and then slowly, silently, she reached behind her neck, unlatched her mic, and placed it on the ottoman beside her. She turned, looked directly into the camera, no drama now, not a reality show stare, just honest eye contact, and said 6 words that didn't feel delivered. "Let the cameras keep this one." Then she stood up and walked off frame. No one followed. No one told her to sit down again. Nobody said cut, because after that, it was just silence. The lens stared at the empty chair like it didn't know what to do without her. The only sound was the faint buzz of something outside. A car door? Running AC? It didn't matter. The room was hollow without her inside it. One producer sitting off-set whispered it out loud. It felt like we watched someone escape. The rest of the crew stood there frozen, because when a woman reaches the place where even speaking isn't worth the breath, no one argues with the exit. You pause. You respect the moment. Or you betray whatever scraps of humanity you were still pretending to hold on to in production. No music. No dramatized fade out. No stage chase. She didn't slam the door. She didn't cry in a hallway. She left. And she never came back for the rest of the season. Editors cut the feed. Not immediately. Almost like their fingers didn't quite want to stop the tape. But eventually, the screen went black. That final shot, it never aired, but those who've seen it say it's the most haunting footage the franchise has ever captured. One chair in the center of a plush, pretty room. One white mic cable curled loosely around the armrest. And a full 60 seconds of nothing but absence. The kind of absence you don't score with piano. The kind you don't edit out with a narration insert. The kind that leaves you wondering whether we watched a cast member quit a show or a woman reclaim her life. And either way, she did it in silence. The network had cut everything they could, redacted scenes, nudged narrative arcs, muted certain subtitles, even recut Jovi's solo scenes to remove anything that might accidentally line up with the real-life timestamps fans were dissecting frame by frame. But there was still one thing they couldn't delete, Yara's texts, and they didn't come from her. It started weeks after the walkout, when fans assumed the story had quietly ended. The season wrapped. No big farewell, no dramatic reunion reveal, just Omission. One day she was part of the edit. Next day, she wasn't. But then a second set of screenshots showed up online. This batch was different. Not flirty messages, not audio from Jovi. These were Yara's messages to someone close. And they carried the kind of pain that doesn't sound staged. She was venting, or maybe finally collapsing, one text read. "He acts like I'm the reason we're like this. Like I poisoned the air." Another. "Even his mother says I changed him. They all want me gone. They think I'm the issue." That single line hit the fanbase like a thunderclap. Because behind all the trust the process edits and glossed over marriage counseling clips was something darker. A woman being held responsible not just by her partner, but allegedly by his entire family. Suddenly, the narrative twisted. Viewers who had once accused Yara of overreacting started asking different questions. Why did she whisper in that van, not scream? Why did she remove her mic instead of demand another take? Why did she stay silent while others stripped her narrative for ratings? Because she knew, no matter what she said, it would be edited to serve someone else's ending. So when that final leaked message surfaced, it felt like a full circle echo. If they knew what happened off camera, they'd never defend him. That's what she said. Quiet, clear, absolute. And the truth is, she was right. Because even after all the attempts to control the storyline, fan forums didn't buy the redemption arc TLC pushed. Every attempt to rewrite Jovi as trying was met with breakdown memes, old footage comparisons, and comments that read like this. She didn't leave the show. She escaped it. They didn't lose a cast member. They lost a woman they didn't deserve. She's not emotional support content. She's done letting people eat her pain for ratings. As for TLC, they tried to get ahead of the damage. Entire episodes were re-edited to focus on side couples. Confessionals were trimmed, then reframed as out-of-context moments. Even the intro graphics were rebuilt quietly, cutting down Yara's airtime without officially saying she exited the series. But you can't unsee everything. You can't retouch pain after it's leaked. A few seconds of raw B-roll, her walking behind crew equipment, eyes down, pushing her hair back, exhaling slowly, suddenly carried more emotional weight than any scene TLC scripted, because it felt real, not reactive. Not produced. It felt like we were watching someone let go, and you felt it wasn't just of Jovi. It was of the system, the gig, the weight of performing grace under pressure while your private heartbreak gets edited for views. She didn't get the legacy outro other stars did. No testimonial, no thank you scene, not even a goodbye voiceover, but in a way that made her last moment louder, because sometimes the most powerful ending isn't the one that's broadcast, it's the one that leaves silence in its place. So what do we call it, really? Did Yara quit the show? Or did she quietly save herself from it? And if TLC biased the edit again, buried the tapes, controlled the sound bites, well, what happens when this isn't the first time, but the first time fans refuse to forget? Because next season, there's another couple getting suspicious airtime gaps, another swear-it's-nothing DMer, another field producer whispering cut, while one half of a broken relationship cries on cue. And if you think this was the one time the mask slipped, wait till you see who's next. That story's already leaking. And it makes this one look like the trailer.